Hello, everyone. You've reached the latest in the Lunch with Larry series. We got a nice topic for you today. We're going to talk about using Mendix as a low-code platform to author a UDI application. We have our partner TimeSeries on today, and we'll talk a little bit about the folks that are going to be part of this. But just wanted to start off with our discussion just to provide you with some contact information. This is my contact information if you want to get a hold of me here at Siemens. We also have the historical webinar location, so if you want to go take a look at any of the webinars we've done historically, this is the link to get to it, and all my contact information if you're interested in shooting me an email or give me a call. Happy to field any discussion that you want to have. Today we're going to talk about Mendix, and this is going to be an example that we're going to build out using Mendix. And one of the real advantages to Mendix is it allows us to use this low-code platform to build out applications much more rapidly and also make them flexible. So as we build them into our databases over time, it allows us to change data sources and provides us with a great flexibility in developing these business applications on top of our platform products. Just a brief outline of why this is interesting. Low-code development is a tremendous time saver. In addition to that, we have the ability to unlock data systems that are a little static. It allows us to develop these applications in native cloud platform, and it really is a time saver from the standpoint of trying to negotiate through the different database, the different platform systems you have, develop these applications and be able to utilize them over time. So today our guest is going to be TimeSeries, one of our suppliers, and the two folks on the line are Vincent Delamar, he's the CSO at TimeSeries. Alex Simplinsky is our Mendix consultant. So welcome, you two. Maybe you, Vincent, you could start with a little background, and then we'll go to Alex and then move on to the main content.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate the invitation. Vince Delamar actually brought Mendix to the US back in 2007. And obviously Mendix was acquired by Siemens about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, actually. And is now part of the Siemens family. So I've been at Mendix for a little over 11 years, and now lead the sales team here at TimeSeries, which is considered a leading partner in the Mendix ecosystem. And joining us today is Alex as well from our team here. Alex, you want to do a quick intro as well?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Alex Simplinsky. Coming up on 4 years with Mendix experience, which is pretty big in the US here now. And then about probably 6-7 years total IT experience.
Super. So Vincent, maybe you could go ahead and get started. Here we go.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a couple of slides to walk people through who we are as a company and the UDI template that we will show you today. A little bit about TimeSeries. So as I mentioned, TimeSeries is a leading partner for Siemens, specifically focused on Mendix. So we build, deploy, collaborate with internal IT and business teams to build what we call smart applications built on Mendix low-code platform. We have a true global presence, European offices, Rotterdam, Germany, and here in Boston. That's where I'm located. And actually, Alex is in Denver, where we've got a big presence as well as in Montreal. And we have some templates, some quick start models for people to start. But if we look at what do people build with Mendix and with us, it's actually an awful lot. It's actually very broad. So if we put these in buckets, there are 4 buckets. One, really launch new products and business models. Think about new go-to-markets, new channels that need to be supported with new web and mobile applications, including rapid experimentation. Think about new products that are being launched that need to be supported with a web app where we build a proof of concept. So that speed is really the value driver there. We do a lot of digitization towards customers, partners, so really beyond the company internal ecosystem. So B2B portals, B2C portals, in the value chain. And then what we'll talk about today is really operational efficiency, which includes the compliance and the quality management part. So the UDI submission and management example, the template that we'll show you today, actually fits in that bucket. And last but not least, we do a lot of modernization of core systems. So think about anything in Excel, Access, Lotus Notes, even 4GL or homegrown systems on the backend that we modernize in a cloud-based environment. A little bit of the portfolio of what we offer. So obviously the expert services. So we have a team of over 120 Mendix consultants that are Mendix skilled. They can build and deliver web and mobile applications for you, completely tailored. But also they can actually, based on our programs, train your own internal people to build and deploy web and mobile applications on Mendix, including a smart app factory. So it's a proven model, including governance, training with our university program to build your own low-code center of excellence. And then the last two items on the right side are really focused on solutions. So we have a rich planning engine, a big data hub, as well as Mendix accelerators. But most importantly, we've got about 24 industry templates in a variety of industries, including the life sciences space. So if we go to the next slide, we see some examples of those portals and those templates that we have built on Mendix. Think about those as quick starts. So instead of starting from scratch, we have done these projects before. We apply our domain knowledge, build a template that you can very rapidly adjust both on the data model, so the integration layer. It can be tied to your own systems of record on the backend, for instance, SAP or your PLM system, as well as then modifying and changing your logic layer, as well as your UI UX, so your user interface, whether it's web or mobile. So UDI submission management we'll talk about today, a lot of self-service portals, telehealth or telemedicine, regulatory compliance like HCP aggregate spend, employee shift rostering, so how do you actually optimize the resources you have and plan those automatically, and much more. But for now, let's focus on UDI submission management.
That sounds great. So maybe Alex, you could start by discussing the application and how it accomplishes what it is that we need from a UDI perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So let's start with the business need. So in 2007, the FDA kind of published a standard for generating a UDI, a Universal Device Identifier. And they used this very niche protocol called AS2, and we're not going to get into it, but the fact of the matter is that it makes it very difficult for modern systems to integrate with their database. Although the standard is very tight and secure, it's difficult for PLMs, quality management systems, to push data to it or get data from it. And that's where Mendix kind of came in, because it allows customer to use their existing systems for catalog management, things like that, but also extend it with Mendix so that you can actually communicate with the FDA and you can publish these UDIs, or you can query to get state. And that was able to happen because Mendix is extensible through languages like Java. So although it does have that low code part of it that you can throw a less technical person on it and that actually understands the business and solves that business need, you can also extend it in a very technical manner, which allows it to fit this need. And it allows us to fit this need without requiring the customer to revamp their entire PLM processes to fit the application. It's kind of a new paradigm where the old paradigm was that you would build this full house application and you would fit your processes to it. And this allows you to kind of build the house and decorate it with your own processes, if that makes sense. So let's move on to the next slide. Yep, one too far. So for those of you that aren't fully aware of the UDI lifecycle, it's just going to be a quick overview. Essentially, the use case for this application was that we wanted all the data to be managed in the Siemens PLM Team Center. And we retrieved that in Mendix, and we would basically manage the lifecycle and transmission of this data to the FDA through the Mendix application. So after we got the data from Team Center, we would generate the XML file and send it to the FDA through their niche protocol, as well as send a copy to Team Center just to allow auditability between the two. And then one of the key things about the AS2 protocol is that it allows the FDA to manage liability by sending a response back. It's kind of like a notarized fax. So we get that message back, and if it's an error, we can figure out what went wrong. If it's a success, we move it into the next state of its life cycle, which is in the grace period, which for 7 days, or it's in a to be published state if the should be published in a couple months in advance. So that kind of is a quick overview of the life cycle, just so we can all understand it, and we can move on to the next slide. So where this fits in is that this application that I'm about to show you kind of just sits on top of your core systems, and it doesn't really affect them. It more of just reads data from them, and then kind of tries to manage the life cycle and push it to the FDA and push that resulting data back to your core systems so that your employees don't, not all of them need to learn this entire new process, revamp it and follow it, that's a whole thing. And it just kind of gives you better transparency into your system, especially into your product launch processes, things like that. So I guess I'm going to show my screen now. I think that makes sense. Okay, are you guys seeing this?
Yep, you're good.
Cool. Second. So this homepage, this is the homepage that you get brought into. Sorry, this is getting big. This is the homepage you're brought into as a user, and it's just kind of meant to, you land, you get some summary data of where you are with your ecosystem. We have some things that need attention. These are UDIs that got pushed and received an error. We've got nothing to be pushed right now. We'll remedy that soon. In grace period, these are UDIs that got pushed within the last 7 days, and what that means is that in grace period, you can add a revision to that UDI. Maybe you need to change the name of it, something like that, just an attribute of it. And published are UDIs that have actually been published to the good ID, and these are locked records. They're what is the public sees, things like that. And on our right here, we kind of just have a line graph with our history of pushes, and this is just to give you a general idea of how you're doing. Maybe you're seeing a lot of errors, and maybe that's data entry, or maybe maybe your process is not as tight knit as you think, and you really need to examine it. So let's just kind of start moving into actual business process we want to get, and that's where we want to get Team Center data. So we're just going to press this button here, and what this is doing, it's reading an XML file from Team Center. We work with Siemens to kind of get that tight knit, and it's bringing you to this record that needs to be pushed. And we can see here we have some information. Basically, there's more data fields in this, but we just wanted to show what we see so that the user can identify that they want to push this, and know that they're pushing the correct data. So we're going to put this in to be pushed. We're going to select it and we're going to submit. I do want to submit. If it's a success, right, it's going to place it in this grace period. If it's a failure, it's going to move it into needs attention. And so in grace period, what you're going to see is that if I go to here, basically it's just all the information you pushed, and after, if this record is in grace period, it's going to push that XML file to the Siemens PLM as well. So then you can, you have a tie between the two. The FDA comes back, your user can see what you sent, and if there's any discrepancy, things of that sort. So we also have published records, right? If we click into here, it's a lot of the same information. You'll see that it has a lock status. A record can become unlocked, but that's outside of this application because you need to do it through the FDA's web portal. But you also have a URL that takes you to the actual Good ID public page, right? This will tell you all the information you have about it, things like that. Let's go to needs attention, right? Because if a record comes back, you want to know what you need to fix, and this is done in their AS2 protocol, what they're called acts 1, 2, and 3. So essentially, this means that the Good ID has rejected the file, and you can get more details from the acts, but at this point we haven't parsed them, but we're kind of, that's on the roadmap, so to speak. And so yeah, that is kind of the demo about the UDI and its life cycle. Is there anything else you'd like to show me here, Larry?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is really valuable about this kind of application is the ability to use it and extend it in the regulated environment. And one of the things that it occurs to me that I've been working on in the past is the ability to do a quality management dashboard, for example. So maybe some of this data comes up as part of quality management review where we want to include it in a different application. How easy it is to extend the application for other regulated sort of activities?
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that kind of opens up the question of, do you want to do that kind of quality management reporting in Mendix, or do you want to do that quality management reporting in like, best of breed tool that you already have, right?
Yeah,
Because
and of course, yeah, it's both, right? Typically,
yeah,
you'd want to be
yeah,
able to
totally.
pull information from other applications. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's just kind of start with the pushing of data from Mendix, right? By far, at least in my opinion, one of the strengths of Mendix is its ability to integrate with modern systems, and it's the speed at which you can develop and hopefully succeed, but also fail fast and learn what you need to do, right? So integrating with other systems, I mean, I could generate a REST service that would publish data from this application to another application, probably in, a non-production integration, let's put it that way, in probably 3 hours, 4 hours. Now, that's just pushing to another system. Now, if we're kind of developing reporting and kind of want to do some more advanced analytics within Mendix, that's going to depend a lot on what you want to do, so to speak. But let's say we have some 4 or 5 KPIs that we know that we have the data to measure them, and we want to build out some some nice graphs and charts or some things like that. I would say probably a day at most. So, I mean, just to kind of give a scale, right? It gets complicated once you get in the weeds, of course, but just to give people who have no context an idea, I think that answers it.
Gives you a sense. Yeah, one of the things that with this particular application, this is a very US based sort of view of how to communicate UDIs back and forth between the company and the US agency. But I would imagine, as you proliferate out through the rest of the world, you got China and Australia, Canada, right, Europe, that sort of extension of these applications might become really important as well. So, and a lot of times these regulations are being approved as time goes along. And in 6 months, you might have a region that's available to this that wasn't available before. So maybe it's an opportunity to quickly get new regions into the application as well.
Oh yeah, and that's, I mean, besides the strength of integration, I mean, kind of the foundation of Mendix is that it's meant to change. It's meant to grow with you. It's not some application you spend 3 years developing and then can't change again because it's so monolithic, right? And that is, that's how the world works, and that's why Mendix was built the way it is.
Sure. So maybe what you could do is help us to understand how the integration's done to these underlying platforms, because this is a big problem that companies run into. They have complex application landscapes with not only lots of different tools, but also different revisions of the same tool across divisions, and management of data across all those is a real problem. Maybe you could help us understand that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a lot of the, I guess, environment configuration for data can be done easily through Mendix using a setup of environment variables, things like that, right? And so that will help you kind of go from dev to QA to production, right? And control that, right? Because you don't want to be messing with production data, but you also want quality data in your QA, or just kind of jump data in dev. Doesn't matter. But where it really excels is the variety of integrations you can do, right? The REST integration is fantastic. Modern developers love it. We can also do SOAP integrations with more legacy systems, right? It's a little more tedious, but part of the whole thing about SOAP is that it's kind of a contract required integration. We can do database integrations well, but we can even do OData integrations like with SAP, right? And so with those 4 types of integrations, you cover probably about 80 to 90% of enterprise integrations. Now, challenge is when it starts getting complex, or when you have to deal with enterprise lack of domain knowledge. Maybe there's a lot of turnover, right? And these people don't know these systems. But also the great thing about Mendix in that sense is that you can build your domain model or all the data you need in Mendix based off a message that you receive from another system. So if I have a quality system and for some reason I don't have the expert on it or the data architect, but I know the service, I can go consume that service using Postman as a regular developer tool. I can get that message, I can put it into Mendix, and Mendix will actually parse it and realize what entities you need, right? Maybe you have a doctor entity, maybe you have a hospital entity, maybe you have a product entity, and how they're connected. And Mendix does a very good job of reading that message and seeing how it should build the actual database to take it into the application, right? And then you can work with it. Does that answer your question?
I think so. One of the use cases that I run into quite a bit is, let's just give you an example. Maybe we're grabbing inventory data from the ERP system, and we have a division in China that's running our SAP R3, and maybe the division in the United States is running HANA, and the division in China then does an upgrade and moves to HANA. What would be involved, or how easy would it be to switch the data source from sort of R3 to R4 or S4,
totally.
I guess it is.
Totally, yeah.
Maybe you could explain that process a little bit to give people a sense of how much effort it is to sort of flow with the system.
All right, so let's just go off the use case that we built this application the way I would build it, right? And that these integrations are modular, right? I have a module for R4 integration, I have a module for S4 integration. Now you're probably showing on a page these integrations in a specific manner. But since we've already built the R4 modules and the S4 modules, and they're probably going into a similar Mendix domain model, it'd be a manner of repointing where those pages or actions go to, right? Because a large part of the Mendix ecosystem is allowing an app store, right? So if I get a license to Mendix, company Alex and Plinsky, I get my own app store. And if I plug in my R4, or probably have an R4 module and an S4 module, I can bring that into the application, the S4 module when I need it, and just connect it as need be. Obviously, it's going to take some work, but that's kind of how the world works, and especially how software development works. But I can tell you from experience that it's a lot easier using Mendix in that manner than using something like Java or Python.
Well, and one of the things is, or developing the application inside the base application itself, right? So if you have to customize SAP to handle that, that's a completely different thing than just changing data sources, right?
Yeah, and you probably have to go about change management processes in your organization and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Another good example is, so this UDI dashboard is really the front end of the process where we're negotiating with the FDA and their catalog. But the back end of the process is taking UDI and putting it into the production process, right? What is our current definition of the good device identifier for this particular product? Now we want to take that and put it into a label printing process. Maybe you could just comment on, as we start to extend these applications, how would that be done, right? Is that just another application that sits on top of a different base system? Maybe give people a sense when we're extending these applications, in this particular example where we're taking this data and we're putting it into a production system, kind of what's the complexity of that?
So it kind of, I mean, that's a loaded question, right? But let's just kind of operate under some assumptions. So let's operate under the assumption that your PLM is kind of the master data, right? And so irregardless of the UDI's status, that PLM will have your master data from the UDI dashboard that we're looking at here, right? Because we pushed it with XML. And so to solve that problem, I would personally suggest using another Mendix application, right? Kind of the paradigm that the IT landscape has shifted to is these numerous small applications kind of spoked off your core applications like an ERP, a PLM, and this allows your organization to change quicker, right? Because I don't know if any of you have tried to migrate an ERP, but it's not very fun, and with failure. Yeah. So I would build another application that reads off that PLM, probably that, I'm assuming the PLM updates off the XML that we upload, right? Take that data in and build the label and integrate with the other system, right? Maybe you have to integrate with your label printer's ERP or some sort of order fulfillment system, right? And you send all that data. Or maybe you need to integrate with a label printer. You know, I've integrated with label printers and printed across the country, which is a little more advanced, probably because you need to do some Java development. But that's also the strength of Mendix, right? You can create this UI really quickly, whatnot, but you can also extend it in a very technical manner if you need to and solve the problem that your organization is facing.
Maybe you could comment a little bit too. I know you all have developed quite a few different applications. One that comes to mind is audit management, and potentially, you know, a lot of people are interested in LMS integrations because they want to assure that you know, their employees are trained on particular either SOPs or work instructions. So I know you have quite a bit of experience in some other applications that are kind of in and around this regulatory space. Maybe you could just touch on some of those to give people a sense of your background and you know, the kinds of work that you've done in a more particular way.
Absolutely. This sounds like a great question for Vince.
Yeah. Yeah. So the benefit, right? And for the people on the call, what you see here, this is all fully customizable, right? So this is a template. This isn't an off-the-shelf solution that you deploy and then you're sort of stuck with what you see is what you get. No, this is the starting point of your unique requirements that we can then embed into this application, whether it's changing a dashboard or changing the logic or changing the integration points on the back end and adding new features and functionality. For exactly the same reason, I'd say there's probably over 3-4 dozen medical device type of applications where we've been involved in, and all of those applications are somewhat different, right? So a lot of quality management, quality information management systems, which typically are extensions of MES and PLM. Think about the ops centers and the team centers, but also other type of applications. A lot of self-service portals, so patients portals, provider portals, both web and mobile, and a lot of telehealth. So perhaps not for the audience today, but a lot of telehealth and telemedicine where we actually do integrations with the actual physical assets itself, and we start to monitor these types of applications. So a lot of PHR, right, patient's health record systems that we tie back then to those specific medical devices. Even as far as medical imaging and DICOM integrations, where we do full remote assessments and build portals for fully remote assessments while viewing those types of images. All the way to something that's more relevant now, that is really around scheduling of resources, right? So think about healthcare systems that need to schedule nurses or even on the plans, the actual people that would work on specific medical devices to manufacture those, to shift and plan those resources, right? So it's a very wide variety of applications that we can build on Mendix, Larry.
Well, and just on a personal note, I have really enjoyed the work that we've done on UDI together, and I think you'd find TimeSeries to be a terrific supplier if you had a need for this kind of programming services. They've been just terrific to work for, so, or work with. So thanks so much. This is the end of our Lunch with Larry today, and I appreciate you all showing up, and thanks Alex and Vincent for your help with the presentation.
Thank you.